welcome to Tutorials by Dacade. My name is Dacade, and in this video we are going to finish up our log enemy here and actually get him to do what he's supposed to do. Or she, whatever, doesn't matter. It's a log. So, with that being said, at the end of the last video, I gave you guys a sort of a challenge to see if you can do this yourselves. If you did, awesome. Still follow along with this video so that way you can do it the way I did it. Or if you have a better way, hey, that works too. If you do happen to have a better way, feel free to leave a comment down below or hop on our Discord and tell us there. With that being said, make sure you give this video a big old thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe as I have videos like this coming out all the time. And with that out of the way, let's get to it. So, since we've already added the log enemy script to the log enemy, let me just make sure I did that before I make an idiot of myself. Yep, all right, cool. Let's open that up and let's get to work in here. So the very first thing we're going to do is get rid of all this stuff. And then we're going to inherit from base enemy. That'll save us a lot of time. There we go. Now we're going to put a header in here. And we're going to do log settings. And then we're going to do a tooltip. And the trigger zone, the player must be inside to be chased. I'm not actually sure if we're going to use that or not, but I'm going to put this in here anyway. Don't think I need to use it, but it's here just in case, so we can always comment it out or delete it later. But private collider 2D and aggro zone. We also need to have a public bool and player in zone, and I'll explain to you why we need a public one here. We're going to default that to false. Then we need two privates. A private bool is waking up, and we're going to default that to false. And then a private bool returning home, and name that one false. And then we can start doing some overrides and creating some logic for our log enemy. First, we need to do a protected override void start. And we do need that base start in there. But we also need to add animator dot set bool and is sleeping. And we need to set that to true. That way the log will start asleep. Now we need to add a protected override void handle idle state. And we do need that base idle state in there. But we're going to add if the player in zone and not is waking up. What this is going to do is this is going to check to see if the player has entered the zone and that the log is not already waking up. That way it doesn't do some weird stuff with the animations and does what it's supposed to do. Now we are starting adding a coroutine in here. So start coroutine wake up. We haven't done anything with that coroutine yet, so you are going to get that little error there. Ignore that for now. We're going to get to that. I'm just going to do this in order and try to explain it as we go along. So now we need a protected override void handle moving state. We are going to get rid of the base handle movement state. And we're going to do a couple things in here. So if the log is waking up, or if the log is returning home, we are just going to return and not do anything. Otherwise, we're going to get a vector2 and we're going to call it direction. And this temporary variable is going to be player.transform.position minus the log's transform dot position. So in other words, the log is going to chase the player. And we're going to normalize it so that way if the log goes in directional or diagonal direction, then it'll look normal and not speed up. We are going to do myRigidBody.linear velocity, and then direction times movement speed. So that's actually going to move the log. And then we're going to do some animators here. So animator.setBool is moving, and that's going to be true. Then we're going to do animator.setFloat, move x into direction.x. And then animator.setFloat, move y to direction. Let me move my mouse off that. Direction.y. And that should be all we need to do for handle movement. So what this is going to do is, assuming that the log is not in the process of waking up or in the process of returning home, it is going to have the log chase the player, and it's going to set the animation. So now we need to do a protected override void check player proximity. We're going to get rid of the base. We are going to do if not player in zone, and if not returning home, then we are going to start a coroutine called return to sleep. Again, we're going to be making this one here soon, so you're going to get that little error. It's just easier if we do this at the end where I normally have the coroutines, just to explain what's going on. So unfortunately, you're going to have to live with that error for a minute. Now we're going to do a private void on trigger exit 2D. And again, I like to change this to other. And what we're going to do is if other dot compare tag is enemy boundary, which we forgot to do that in last video, so we're going to do that this video, is create a tag for that boundary that we made. And then if is alive, we are going to start the coroutine return to sleep. All right. Couple more, and then we'll get into those coroutines here. So we need to do a protected override void on player detected. And we are going to get rid of the base. We are going to do if not is waking up, and player in zone, and current state equals enemy state dot idle. Then we're going to start the coroutine wake up. And lastly, protected override void resume movement. We are going to get rid of, or I'm sorry, we're going to keep the base movement. And we're just going to add a little if statement in there. So if not player in zone, return. No, not returning home, just return. And then we're going to do everything that's in the base movement, or base resume movement. And now we're going to work on those enumerators I told you about. So we're going to do private enumerator. We're going to name this one wake up. And what we're going to do is we're going to set is waking up to true. We're going to tell the animator to set the bool is sleeping. Hold on, apparently my fingers are not working today. There we go. Is sleeping to false. We're also going to tell the animator to set the trigger for wake up. Then we're going to change state to enemy state dot idle. And here's a new one for you guys. It is yield return new wait 4 seconds, which is not new for you guys. But what is new is instead of putting a number in there, we're going to put in animator dot get current animator state info. In parentheses, we're going to put 0. And then dot length. And what that's going to do is it's going to get the length of the current animation, which is at this point going to be the wake up animation. And then after that, we're going to set is waking up to false. We're going to change the state to enemy state dot moving. And then just to be safe, we're going to handle the moving state. So what this guy is going to do is it's actually going to do the animation for waking up the log. It's going to keep the log in idle so that way it doesn't chase the player. It's going to wait until the animation is done playing. Then it's going to change the state to moving. It's going to change the is waking up to false, and then we're going to handle all of our movement. And then last is the return to sleep. This one's a little bit longer. So we're going to do a private enumerator, not enumerable, enumerator. There we go. And then return to sleep. And in here, we're going to set returning home to true. We're going to do myRigidBody.linear velocity is vector2.0. That way it's going to stop moving for a second. And instead, what we're going to do is we're going to put another temporary variable in here called direction to start. And it is going to be initial position. Oh, we need parentheses. So parenthesis, initial position minus vector2 transform dot position. And then we're going to normalize that. And then we're going to change our state to enemy state moving. And so what that's going to do is it's going to add a new temporary variable called direction to start. And what it's going to do is it's going to find the initial position and start heading towards there. So I don't know if we've done a while loop yet, but a while loop is a loop that will continue to loop until it is no longer true. So while vector2.distance transform.position and initial position are greater than 0.1f. So right here at the start, a vector2.distance finds the distance between two objects. So transform.position is the log. Initial position is where the log starts. And as long as the distance between those two is greater than 0.1f, and you can change that number, but 0.1f is pretty good for what we're going to be doing here, then whatever we put in this loop is going to continuously happen until this becomes false. In other words, once the log and the initial position are at 0.01 or less. So my rigid body dot linear velocity is going to equal direction to start times movement speed. So that's actually going to be moving the log. And then all we really got to do is change the animators to reflect that. So animator dot set float move x direction to start dot x, and animator dot set float move y and direction to start y. And then yield return null. So everything in this little block is going to continuously run until this becomes false. So all we're going to do is really move the log back to his home start, or her home start, or whoever. Once the log is back to its starting position, we're going to do a couple things here. So my rigid body dot linear velocity equals vector2 dot 0. So we're going to stop moving the log, which the log should have already stopped, but just to be safe, we put that in there. Then we do animator dot set bowl is moving to false. Then we change state to enemy state dot idle. Then we do the animator dot set trigger. No, not target. Trigger to go to sleep. Then, as we did before, we're going to yield return new, wait 4 seconds, animator dot get current animator state info, and then dot length. And then animator dot set bowl is sleeping to true, and then returning home to false. And that should be all that we need to do in here. We're going to double check, and I do not see any errors in this giant column here, but that is all we need to do for log enemy. Now there is a couple of things that we need to do in Unity that we didn't do, and then we do need to make one quick little script after this. So let me check my time here. So yeah, this video is going to be a tad bit longer than I wanted it to be, but I promise you we'll get all this stuff done here, and we'll go from there. But the one thing we need to do is the log boundary. We need to add a tag to it. So we're going to add a tag, add that little plus, and we're just going to name it enemy boundary. And I do believe that's what I named it in the script. Yes. All right. So we did that. Now what we need to do is we need to create a tiny little script to help out this whole process. So under scripts, I put it under game, right click, create, and scripting, mono behavior script, and I'll just name it enemy boundary. And we're going to open that up real fast. And all we're going to do here is get rid of all this. We are going to serialize a field. And it's going to be a private log enemy. Just name it log enemy. And then we need a private void on trigger enter 2D. Remember to name this other. Come on, quit fighting me here. And then in here, if other dot compare tag is the player, then the log enemy dot player in zone is going to be true. And then we are essentially going to do the exact same thing, private void on trigger exit 2D. And just going to copy this, paste that in there, and then we're just going to change that to false. And then we're going to save that. Then we're going to hop into Unity. We're going to link it all together once Unity does what it's supposed to do here. So in the log boundary, if you click on that, we are going to drop the enemy boundary in there. It's going to ask for the log. So we're going to drop the log in there. Then we're going to go to the log enemy. And the only thing that we need to do in the script here, I mean, we can name it. We'll just name him logs. We'll make his health 2. Everything else looks good, but we do need to add the player in there. So we'll drop the player in there. And then it is going to ask for this, even though we never used it. So we can just drop that in there. And there we go. So let's hit play. Now let's go over to scene view, and there's our log sleeping. Can't really see him because he's cutting off on the screen there, but as soon as we enter the zone, he wakes up. He starts chasing the player. Player leaves the zone. Why has not the log gone back like he's supposed to? I have left the zone. He has left the zone. What did I miss? Oh, well, there's one thing that I missed. So for rigid body, the rigid body 2D, make sure we freeze the rotation. I think I know what happened. I added the trigger, but I never actually put this as a trigger, so, or the tag, I mean, so enemy boundary. So there we go. So let's try that again. There's our log sleeping. We've entered his zone. He's mad. He's chasing us. And there he goes. He goes back to sleep. And now we're in his zone again. A little weird animation there, but we can fix that later. Nonetheless, there is your enemy that starts in a area, chases the player if the player enters the area, and then goes back to sleep whenever the player is done or out of the area. So if you guys like this video, make sure you give it the big old thumbs up. If this was helpful to you, make sure you subscribe, as I have videos like this coming out all the time. And as always, thank you. Have a good one. And I'll see you on the next one.